Hello. Today I'd like to show you a fun quilt that I've made, or how to make a fun quilt that I have made. And I'm just using some 2.5 inch wide strips, which I've got some of here just to show you. And there's so many pre-cuts out there nowadays. I've done a pattern for this quilt. It's available on my website, gourmetquilter.com, to purchase and download. It uses 40 2.5 inch wide strips across the width of the fabric, and because I usually cut my own fabrics into strips and things for the shop and for my own use, I've got a couple of bundles here that I have got, and I've got a bundle, and I only put 20 in a bundle for the ones I do usually. So I've got some very nice sort of greeny colours in this one, and this one's just all different sort of greys, and I just thought actually they would work quite well together. Probably just merge a little bit, which is what I was after on this occasion. So I'm going to just show you how you can cut them. So if you have 40 strips that are 2.5 inches wide, that's enough to make the whole of the main area of the quilt, plus you need some borders. So I cut them into lengths of 6.5 inches for each piece, and I do all the pre-cutting and then join them up because I want to be able to mix the fabrics around so that we get this nice random arrangement, which I quite like. So you can get, out of one strip of fabric, you can get 6.5 inch lengths, and I'll just quickly show you how you can do that. And you need 240 strips altogether, which is exactly what you'll get out of 40 2.5 inch strips. So I've actually got a couple of strips layered together here. I would cut 2, or I might even cut 4 together. And I've ironed them, and I've got them lined up with my board so that they're going to stay nice and straight. I'm just going to trim off the selvage first. Don't need selvages, they're not helpful in the scheme of things. And then I'm going to come along 6.5 inches. So my strips are 2.5 inches wide, and I'm going to come along to 6.5 inches, and then another 6.5 inches, which is actually 13 on my board, and another 6.5 inch, which will be 19.5 on my board. And I can just continue on slicing my strips up into these 6.5 inch lengths, which is what we need for this particular quilt. And now I could have done one more, but I'm going to bring that along because I can't get the whole length of the strips onto the cutting board, so I've stopped at a convenient place. I'm again lining up my strips with the measurements on my board, and again I'll go to 6.5 inches and the last one at 6.5. So I can, there you can see I've actually got 6 strips out of that one long strip, and these are leftovers now, so these will go into my leftovers pantry in my 2.5 inch drawer of my leftovers pantry, so they won't be wasted. I can get squares or some other pieces out of that. So that's how you can get 6 of your 6.5 inch strips out of a length of fabric there, and then they need to be sewn together. Now, because I've used 2 colorways rather than just one whole long thing, you might want to split fabrics up if you've got a different arrangement of how you've got your strips. But I'm going to alternate my colours, so even though it is actually going to be randomly put together, I'm going to alternate. So because I've got lights and darks within the greys, and I've got some lights and different things going on in the greens there. So I thought if I alternate the green and the grey, I'd kind of have this nice mergy look, which is what I was after. So what I've done then is I've put all my green strips into a paper bag. So you can see here, I've cut up a roll just the same as the one I've shown you, and so they're all randomly thrown in together in a bag. They're all the greens, and in this other paper bag I've put all my greys. So what I'm going to do to be able to sew them together, because I want that random look, I'm not going to worry about which one goes where, except that I want the green and the grey to alternate. So I might just take a few out from each side, and I'm going to sew them together just into pairs. So this quilt is quite fun to make because you don't know what's going to come up next. And I'm using batiks, which has made it confusing because now I can't see which is the right side, but I don't know if it really matters. So I'm just going to sew them up into pairs now, just with your 1/4 inch seam allowance. So you could just sit and chain piece the whole lot of these into pairs. I'm not going to make you watch while I do that whole lot. but I'll do a couple. Now because I'm using two different sort of colorways, even though everything is basically random, a little bit of organization in my random, I'm going to sew so that the green one is always my top fabric, so that there's just a little bit of order and I know where I'm up to with things. So always putting a green on top of a grey and then sewing them. And I would just work the way through my few that I've got here, and then I'll go to my bag and get some more out. And I'm just looking for the right side of the fabric all the time. So I would just continue to chain piece with that on top. If you're not using two different colour ways like I am, and they are going to be completely random, well of course you don't need to do that side of things. I might just do one more. And then I'm going to show you what I would do next. So I probably would do the whole lot first, all in one go, because that would be a whole something done. So because I'm not using these at the moment, I'm going to pop them back in my bags so I don't get them mixed up. So some of these fabrics will be kind of similar, some will be not so similar, and I wasn't after a big contrast, so that was fortunate. So then I would probably iron them, because you know me, I'm a little bit of a stickler for ironing things. Now I've kept my green on top each time and sewn down that side, so I'm going to do the same thing with the ironing. I'm going to lay the green down every time, and this is because I'm wanting a little bit of order in my random, so that everything, all the seams will go in the same direction when I put them together, because if I join that one there so that I've got grey, green, grey, green, the seams will all be going the same way. So by keeping things a little bit ordered, but still selecting the pieces randomly, I'll end up with hopefully something quite acceptable. So we've done that much, and then having done my whole 240, so that I'm down to 120 of these pieces, I would then come along and join those, and again I'm going to keep the green on top every time, so I just maintain that method of keeping things on top. So then I'm going to go all the way through all my pieces and join them up, those pairs, into pairs. So again, keeping the green on top, the green goes to the grey every time. So you could do something a whole lot more definite with the colours than I'm doing, but I was just wanting that mergy look. So I'm going to press those quickly now again. It doesn't seem like I'd be pressing all the time if I've done a whole chain of them. So I'd go through and do all of those so that then I've got them in. Again, keeping my green always to that side so that the seams, as you can see here, are all going the same direction, and they can, throughout the quilt, that everything can go the same direction, because what happens when we've made up enough to do a whole strip, so I would then actually come back and continue on with this, what I'm doing here, and I would join that to that, so that I've got lots of 8 of these strips joined together, and then 3 of those, we need 24 strips all the way across for the quilt. So by the time I've got 8 of those, 3 of them make the width of the quilt. So you can just continue joining up. It's quite a lot of fun. It's fairly quick and easy, even though it seems a little daunting to start out with that many smallish pieces. But it's not so bad. So I've already done a few little bits here. So I'll move some things around here so I can just show you. So you're going to piece your pairs together like we've done. You're going to put the pairs with other pairs like we've done, and then I've got some bits here. So you would take them up to this point where there's 8 strips together and continue on, and actually you need 3 of those would make the width of the quilt. So it's a reasonable size quilt, but just so that you can get a bit of an idea of what I'm doing. So they're all facing the same way. My green is always on my right, as I was when I was pressing and sewing and things, and all those seams are all going that way. So the next row that I'm going to join together, I want the seams all to be going that way, so I'm going to turn that round, and what that ends up giving me is this kind of checkerboardy effect with my alternating my greens and my greys. And I just thought if I just showed you this sort of amount done, you'd get a bit of an idea of how it all comes together. So these would go next with the greys and the greens alternating all the way through. And I just thought that was kind of a fun way of using some of the pre-cut strips that are so readily available these days. There might be a whole range of fabrics that will work together, or you might have some different colours and things like I've done there. So that was really just how to use some of those strips. And I'll just show you a couple of quilts that I've made. This is the one that's shown on the pattern. This was made with a purchased roll of strips and plus some borders. And I've done a bit of a scrappy border on that one, just using up some bits and pieces that I had. And so that's how it comes together, and I'll show it to you again in another colourway, just to give you yet another idea. This one I just completely randomly did, so you can see that I've ended up with similar fabrics close by and things, but that I like random. Random does things like that, so that's fine by me. So this is one done in completely different colours, very pastel quilt, but again very pretty, very effective. Exactly the same pattern with the strips and things, and a nice border, one fabric border around, not the scrappy border on that one. And so that was really just to give you an idea. So by popping your pieces in your paper bags, you get that random effect as you take them out, so that you're not thinking too much about which one goes with which. And then by the time you've sewn them all into pairs and then put them back together, they've kind of moved again. So the random just generates random, really. And so that was just another idea to use some 2.5 inch strips. Thank you.